Costa Rica has really been, as you mentioned, a model for sustainable development, and you have one of the very few countries which has a climate, carbon neutral target. So, how have you, and that too as a developing country, balanced the pursuit for a good life and development for your people, and being sustainable?
Well, that's a very good question because we don't see any contradiction. We think that balancing social, environmental, and economic issues is the way that can make you resilient, will give you a long-term perspective, and will give you the right competitiveness. So instead of promoting lower salaries or lower environmental standards or sacrificing your country's quality of life and of nature in the altar of the economic development, by balancing these three angles, you are providing an alternative development path.
So I was just wondering that given that you've done this so successfully in your country, and of course situations, political, social, economic, are different in every country, still for basic countries which are fast taking over and becoming, some of the highest emitters, like China is number 1 now, India is on 4. What do you think is a model that they could adapt from your experience?
Well, the balance certainly will be different in each country. But larger countries will have, again, larger resources and will have a more important voice in the international community, will have a financial power that smaller ones we don't have. And of course, they have bigger challenges too, like India or China, attending very large populations and percentage of the world. From our perspective, it doesn't change the equation. What change is the instruments, is how you sell it to the people, how you engage, local communities, companies, government officials in this new paradigm. It is, of course, more difficult. You have to convince, millions of people instead of thousands of people, but it will be at the same time will provide a lasting impact on the planet and on the earth. We will be more like a pilot case, and the real challenge will be in these larger countries.
So my last question is that today in the LCA session in the morning, some of the keywords that we heard here, adaptation, mitigation, finance, were missing, and that caused, naturally from the developing countries, certain concerns. And of course, we also know that it will probably be thrashed out later in the week, and we'll come to some sort of an agreement. But what do you think is your take on that?
Well, it is clearly a difference between adaptation and mitigation. Mitigation is depending on agreements, political will, whereas adaptation is depending on nature. I mean, we have to adapt to something that is already there, that is increasing the frequency and magnitude of extreme weather events. We don't have a choice, and somehow we are managing it in the wrong way, meaning by that devoting more time to mitigation than to adaptation, which is the real thing. And we are already spending, in the case of Costa Rica, around 1.5% of the GDP in ex-ante and ex-post measures to adapt our economy. I don't expect the world to solve this balance and this equation, but it will be only fair that the debtor countries, environmental debtor countries, should contribute in a more decisive way and in a more urgent way. This is not happening, but we have to keep pushing and forging alliances and by preaching by example. And so sometimes as smaller countries, that's all we can do. and showing that it is viable, it is possible, that using the force of the arguments and the force of the ideas, because that's all we have. But sometimes by showing the north, the direction, is enough to gain momentum and to forge alliances that may keep the world walking forward. We started in 1994 in selling the idea to the world, the idea of keeping the forest standing. At that time, that was like a nonsense. That was something like it's not doable. Well, Costa Rica has done it, and we have now a larger number of countries trying to do the same, especially in the tropical part of the world. That's why we're optimistic in the middle of all the financial crisis, all the discussions and everything that is happening on or not happening here.
Thank you so much for your time.